Okay, welcome to one of our CalSPRA conference callbacks. We are excited today to share with you one of the outstanding presentations from our CalSPRA conference. My name is Jessica Hull. I'm proud to serve as your CalSPRA president. And today we have with us the Riverside Unified School District comms team. So Diana and Nick are going to be walking us through RPIE systems and analytics, increasing efficiency in a small communications office. And as a communications office of one, and see a lot of other communications offices of one on the webinar today, I know we're all eager to learn some tips and tricks about how to be more efficient in the work that we do. So Diana and Nick, thank you again and take it away.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for coming to our talk. This was so much fun to do in person, and now we're really gracious to be back here. We are two of the representatives from the communications department, so we'll get into the details of what our department looks like, but I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. So I'm Nick Hamry, Community Relations Manager, and I actually started as the graphic design and digital content specialist for RUSD in about 2017, I believe. It's crazy how time flies, right? But about 2 years ago, I was promoted into this position, which has been really great because my background is in communications. So I kind of feel like I was able to come back home into this role. And now I can utilize what I learned as a designer and through the processes of working with almost every department here, factor that into communications. And I was able to help Diana in a lot of this stuff when she started.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Diana Meza. I have been in communications for 20 years. My experience has been mostly in higher education and then transitioned over to K-12 about a little bit over 2 years ago. And so it's been really fun. It's been definitely a huge difference from higher ed to K-12, but the systems that we've been able to put in place are just, they've changed the way we do things, and I can't wait just to get it started and show everybody what we did. Next slide. So at our USD, this is our mission, values, and equity tenets. Everything that we do is integrated with our mission, values, and equity tenets that you see here. So as I go through, you're going to see how everything's woven in. Next slide, please. Our district, 16th largest district in California, 94% graduation rate. We do have 50 school sites, approximately 40,000 students. And you can see here who we serve, predominantly 67.2 Hispanic and so forth. Next slide. Our communications department purpose, structure, and system. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about our purpose and how we set it up 2 years ago when it was just Nick and I. The purpose, aligned with board priorities, was to communicate with families and communities in a timely and clear, unified manner. Storytelling, a whole lot of storytelling, so that we can build trust with our community and with not only external but internal community. And number 3 is to promote RUSD as a leading district in California. Those are our three purposes that we have strategically stuck by and have really helped us shape what we have today. Next slide, please. Now, this is our team, small but mighty. Like I said, 2 years ago, it was myself and Nick. And then we were able to hire a graphic designer, 2 media technicians, and an administrative assistant. So now it's a team of 6, and we are able to really execute our strategic plan because of this team. So you'll learn more about it in our next slide. This is a snapshot of what we do, right? There's media relations, internal and external communications. We have writing, proofing, editing, reputation management, community relations, crisis communication, planning special events, environmental scanning. I know a lot of the times we're like, oh, it's just the communications office, right, in a big circle. But once you divide it, this is a lot of work, right? And so we really had to think about how we were going to create those systems to be able to cater to all of the responsibilities that a communications department has. So next slide. We have, there were some challenges faced. There was, when I first got there, there was lack of strategy in the district department. There were no project request organization at all. So we were getting last minute rushed requests, and there wasn't enough staff. It was just Nick and I, right? And so we had to execute this, plans for this large district. And so we're faced with these challenges that were pretty enormous. And so Nick and I just started brainstorming. We started filling positions and started brainstorming on what we wanted the office to look like, our strategic plan, which led us to the next slide, please. Shifting to a strategic model. And again, the strategic plan has been our saving grace. It's been what we use as our guide. I often say that, administrators come and go, but if you have a good strategic plan where you think about these things up front, you develop your goals aligned with the goals of the district, the goals of your Board of Education, you can't go wrong. So we developed a strategic plan for 2022 through 2025. And, we're constantly using that and checking off all of the goals, because there's always an evaluation period. So this here has been our guiding force, and it's pretty much tailored to like what we do. And so this strategic model will then inform our next slide, which Nick will go ahead and take over and talk a little bit about.
All right, so in addition to the strategic plan, one of the main changes that we implemented from that was RPIE-focused communications plans, which kind of gets into the meat of the title of our presentation. This has been something that has been game-changing for our department as well as our district and other departments that work with us. And that is to create comms plans in the form of Google Docs that are all structured around RPIE. So we're training people to think about researching items, planning, implementation, and evaluation. The really game-changing thing for me with this was that when I used to get into meetings with people, I would immediately want to start solving all the problems like right away. And something that through RPIE I've learned is that it's really important to treat the first meeting as an intake meeting, and then from there develop this plan out where you do all the appropriate research and figure out exactly what's needed for the specific situation, come up with the planning based on what's being asked for and what can actually be done, how it's going to be implemented, and then factoring in a evaluation at the end. So you can really look at how things were done. If it's a yearly thing, which most of this stuff tends to be, what can be trimmed for next year, what worked and what didn't. So incorporating that evaluation process in is super important so that you don't spend time on things that don't make sense to continue. The next thing that we did to implement the strategic plan was to implement a project management system, which we have been very successful with Asana. Asana has been a game changer as well for us because it really keeps track of everything in one place. Before we were using Google Forms as a way to send a form out to get people to submit projects to us, and then trying to put it into Asana. But what we learned is that there's actually Asana forms that function exactly the same that automatically populate in the program, which was also amazing to hear about. I remember being on the rep with the phone and having them say there's Asana forms and just being like, what? So once we did that, everything started to get a lot more clean. The basic structure of Asana is that there's buckets for every project that we work on. So for the newsletter, for design requests, website requests, all of those things have a specific project bucket. We then have a form that's tied to a general request bucket. And that's what's shared with people. And then when people submit to that, it goes to our administrative assistant, who then assigns it to a person, figures out what project bucket it would go into. Say it's a website request, so that's going to go into the website bucket. It's going to be assigned to our webmaster, or our graphic design and digital content specialist. And he is going to have the due date and all the information that he needs from that form and be able to complete it. The thing that's really good about Asana as well, especially if you have staff that are used to a certain type of way of doing things or are not super excited about it, is that there's ways to generate reporting for yourself. So the way to really kind of communicate the value of it from an internal perspective is that when you connect it to the analytics, you can easily report out all of the stuff that you've done. As you can see on here, this is just some data points for where our department is spending the most of its time, but it's super, super valuable because that feeds up, right? So we can give that information to our assistant superintendent, who can then bring that to our superintendent, which then populates some of the stuff that's shared when she does share outs too. So it's really important as a highlight for staff to really showcase everything that they're doing, as well as just being organized and having everything in one place so balls don't get dropped. So basically how that looks from a workflow perspective is there's the Asana form submission. It's processed and assigned. Contact is made by the assignee. So whoever is the person in charge in our department is going to contact the submitter and let them know if that due date works, if it doesn't work, or if there's any additional details that are needed. They're going to develop the project. They're going to share proofs depending on what the format is. And then they're going to send the final product over. The other thing that we've used as a tool is implementing Sprout Social as a way to manage all of our social accounts in one place and facilitate two-way communications when needed on our social posts. So it's a good way to see what's working as well as see what's not working. A good way to really manage interactions, especially when there are things happening that are emerging or that are controversial, and there's a lot of comments on a certain item. It's really good for keeping track of everything and monitoring what's happening. It has been really helpful for us to see, especially video content, what's working and what's not, so that we're continuously evaluating and not continuing to spend time on projects that are not going to give us the greatest benefit. The other thing that we have implemented is a news hub. So our graphic design and digital content specialist is super skilled with web design and was able to take our news feature, this is through School Messenger, and design it in a way that really makes it easy to pinpoint exactly what you need. So we have all of our news stories populate here, as well as our family update that we do twice a month. But the really cool thing about it is that you can select the category that you need. So if you just want to learn about student learning, all of the news stories that are related to that will show up here. If you want to learn just about well-being, all of those things will come up. So we really focused on categorizing it so that people can find exactly what they're looking for with this. And this is where everything lives. So anything that we cover, any important item, all goes in the news hub. And it's such a great thing to be able to share with people. It's been really, really helpful. I think that because of the quality of it too, when you do share it with people like we do in our newsletter that goes out, we have a link that goes out to this, they're motivated to want to submit stories to you. So that's been really helpful for just getting out there and getting those stories coming. I think sometimes we're very fortunate to have people that are really engaged that will submit to us, but sometimes there's stories out there that we don't know about because people aren't aware or are not like thinking the way that we want them to about submitting that stuff to us. So getting them excited about being featured on this page is super important. And I'm just really proud of this one specifically. Mentioned prior was our family newsletter. So this is what we send out twice a month. And it's also featured, it's in a similar format as the news hub. But this is a item that we send out. And this is also managed through Asana. Specifically, we have two forms. So we have the general intake form, and then we have a newsletter form. And the way the newsletter form works is it's structured like a news release. So anything that you would need to do a news release is included in that form, and it helps us populate all the content and get what we need, basically. So it has two functions. We structured our newsletter to be mostly focused on having important information that families need, like data gathering and more items like state of the district items that are not necessarily stories. And then when we get those submissions, we create separate stories for those that go in the news hub, but we can use that same form for both features. But this has been really helpful for getting staff to have a good avenue of a way to submit stuff to us that we can share out with people on a consistent schedule. And this is keeping our families updated with everything that they need to know. The other way that we get information out is by using MailChimp and doing on a similar schedule twice a month, sharing out all of the news highlights that are populated in the news hub. So we gather all of the stories that were featured in the news hub and we compile them in a MailChimp template and send this out to local media after events happen as a way to ensure coverage for items. And we've been pretty successful with it. And it feels like a better way to manage some of these things sometimes, so that, especially because of the nature of things happening on school sites and wanting to be really careful there, this allows us to still get the coverage, but have it come after the event. And this way they already have everything they need from the story that we've written. And it seems to be really helpful. And what's really great, we always talk about this, but we can see all of the analytics for people that have clicked on it and viewed it, which is really helpful because it makes you realize what stories are being responded to and what to include in this. But it's comforting knowing that people are looking at it, right? And then you can kind of see what organizations may cover something. So to kind of wrap that up, all of the themes that we discussed, a lot of it is powered through Asana, and I swear I'm not being paid by them, but I said that in our meeting too, because it's been so game changing. But Asana really powers all of the organization in partnership with the communications forms. So something important to mention is that the comms forms that we develop for departments, once we've developed those, we'll send those to our admin, and that actually helps. She takes that into Asana and will build out all of the assignments from there and then task those out to people. So it's a way of managing not only the submissions that come in, but also organizing all the tasks that are related to the communications forms. And through that project management software, we handle social media, we handle the news hub, we handle news pitches, and all of the communications plans. All right, and I'll give it back over to Diana to talk about some of our recent accomplishments.
All right, sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. So accomplishments, we established Asana as a workflow system, which you've heard has been a game changer for us. We established a comms plan culture using the RPIE and just really getting our departments and school sites to think through and really utilize communications plans. We developed the 3-year strategic plan. We established Sprout Social to keep track of our analytics. We established our award-winning news hub and our external newsletter, our USD Engage, which goes out 3 times a year to our external partners. And that has been doing really well as well. We established MailChimp to pitch stories and track analytics. So we send that out every 2 weeks to our media. And that's how we want to preserve our media list. So we send it in a group so that we don't lose subscribers. So that's been working really well for us. We set up a template for family newsletters via the webpage just to eliminate errors. So we use that as the landing page, and it's been doing well too. And we don't have to create another template, but it's on our website, and so everything's there in real time. Next, please. Recommendations for everyone is always do business using a communications plan. It's always ingrained that to the team, and that's just the way we think and how we do our stuff. It's efficient, and it's accountability. Have a requisition management system that allows for team collaboration. Align your work with your department and district goals, and purchase systems that have strong analytics. That is something that is really important to us, which is why we are actually going to be moving over to Parent Square. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll do our pilot, but we need to have analytics. We need to show for it. We need to know who's engaging and who's not engaging. Next slide, please. questions. Now I'm going to open it up to questions.
I have a question about Asana. So I love a project management system, but I know that others don't. And school site secretaries want to just be able to call you on the phone or send you an email or drop by and request. How did you really bridge launching Asana and having people fully comply with submitting everything through there, and how did you tackle any challenges?
So the majority of people it was an institutional change. So people were used to submitting to a form with us. So we did have that going for us with Google Forms. It was just a matter of changing it. But the justification really is to be able to showcase, and it's kind of two-pronged. So within the department, like I said, it's easier to sell using something new because you can say, these are all your analytics to justify everything that you're doing. And you can really make a really strong case for yourself to show how much work you're doing whenever you need to, right? And then outside of that, with other people, it's kind of appealing to that too, and being like, we really need to, as a department, report on all the analytics and stuff that we're doing. So I need all of these requests to go in this way. You can still tell me about it over the phone, but I'm going to follow up this phone call with a link to how you can do this. So please feel free. You don't ever want to shut people down and be like, I don't want to hear about it, send it to the form first. But you need to remind them that, thank you for telling me about this. Here is our process for doing this. Go ahead and submit through here. This will make sure that a ball is not dropped. And by saying that, you just kind of appeal to the fact that as a comms department, we have a lot of things going on all the time. And unless something is stored somewhere, it just increases the likelihood that something is not going to get done. And no one wants that, right? So I think it's kind of convincing them to see that, and then also just kind of appealing to them and being like, and also it's helpful for our department to be able to report every assignment that we're doing. It's not for us to force you to do something that you're not used to doing, or saying that I don't want to hear it, submit to the form. It's really so that we can make a case for ourselves and showcase all the work that we're doing.
Thank you. There's another question in the chat. Thanks for sharing. And can you explain sending by group mode on MailChimp so you don't get unsubscribes?
I can allude to that. So we have a media list, and that's what we use. Rather than sending press releases every day or every other day, we bundle them together. So that way it's less emails that they're receiving. And there's a higher chance of them unsubscribing, which we've been really successful. I don't think we've had any unsubscriptions from the press or media because we do it this way, because sometimes it's just too much, right? And so if there is going to be a standalone press release, we normally know what that is, and it has to be grand. If not, they get it as a digest with all of the great stuff that's happening. And that's the way we're able to just kind of parse it all out and make sure that they have our information. And they look at it because we're looking at the analytics on the back end, and I'm like, ooh, they clicked it 10 times. Wow, why are they clicking 10 times? But it's so cool. And I live for seeing the analytics on the back end and seeing who's viewing and looking at the click map. That is like my favorite thing to do, and it brings so much joy to my heart. So that's that.
Awesome. The next question, you mentioned you use storytelling to build public confidence and trust. Can you share your philosophy around that, how the stories are disseminated, and how you measure trust or public confidence?
I'll let you take this one, Diana.
Perfect. It's just letting the public know. Before, the public was not aware. Our news hub was existing, but it wasn't as frequent. So being able to share our stories out on our news hub, on our social media, getting these videos together really has helped with public trust, right? They're seeing that, they're sharing like, oh, this is happening in the classrooms. Oh my gosh, this student got the scholarship. This person, this group went to the Tournament of Roses. There's just so many great things that are happening, right? I mean, we have 50 school sites. let's share the good stories, because there's good news all of the time. So if you start pushing all of the good stuff, when bad stuff happens, hopefully they remember all of the good, and then you gain all of that support. And so it feels like the last 2 years that we really have been working on our storytelling, we're not we're not in the news as much. When I first got there seemed to be a constant story ran, about RUSD, about different things. And I think establishing the media relations, the storytelling, and then showing them like what we're all about, which is student learning and well-being, that's really changed the perception. We will always have work to do, but that is really important for the job of communications and just the job of the district in general. Everybody wants to see, good stuff going on at their schools, and good student learning and engagement. And so that's pretty much how we've been handling. We've just been upping our news releases and our video production, and just really, letting our community, you live and you send your kids to one of the best school districts around, and that's how we like to operate.
I think I'll just add one more thing to that too. Like I'm involved in a lot of the writing and a lot of the social media captions, and something we have noticed is anytime we can redirect back to our students, so specifically student stories or even staff stories, those are the things that the engagement level is incredibly high. When graduations happen, something we started doing last year is just a little short post. We have our teams out grabbing photos just for us to use throughout the year. We also do other services for the graduation itself, but just really good photos. And we post them the night of, and we got up to 1,000 likes on some of these posts, which is really pretty good for us. And so I feel like, in addition to everything Diana said, as much student content and staff content that you can put out there is really good, because it reminds people of why we're here. And it reminds people of what the true story is of what's happening every day, right? And a lot of the times it's just uncovering, like I said, when we were talking to the newsletter and the news hub, it's getting them used to creating a very clear path for how they can submit when they do reach out to you, because they will, as soon as they see another school that has a story, you want to have your copy and paste email that you can respond with right away that says, I'm so glad you read this. I'm so glad you're interested. Here's how you submit to us to get the story just like this. And then they'll start slowly coming in and just making that the norm.
Do you share this plan out with your board, and are they aware of it, or do you do board presentations on any of these analytics or your goals?
Yes, we actually, the strategic plan, they were part of it. So we vetted it through them. We do monthly analytics to them as a board mail out. We've also been in the span of 2 years, we've given a presentation at the board meeting with just updates and what we've been able to accomplish. So yes, the board is always on the know. And then even like with boards too, they work behind the scenes. A lot of the times, that there are people who are skeptical about board members, right? So it's nice. We've been really intentional too about capturing them in action. Like they went to back to school night, and so we sent a crew, even though it's after hours. It's important to capture that, and so you see that engagement where they're talking to families, and they're providing their time as a board members do, and to be able to see that I think is really important. And so it was really nice, and it was well received, and that's fresh on my mind. So I felt like I needed to say that, because I think where you can elevate your community and engage everyone and just kind of see all of the good work that's happening around your district. It's a no-brainer, and that's what we're looking for. And we sound like broken records when we're talking to our school sites, because we're always saying, please share your stories. Please, here's the link. Like it is constant. That's how we're always sending it through our principals' newsletters, through just principals' meetings. here you go, here's a form, please think about us. And I think it's really, it resonates now, because we've been so present and at pushing that, and then also showing the analytics and showing how well these stories do. So it's been really fun. It's been a really, as we pause and reflect, Nick and I often say, reflect with these 2 years where it was, remember, it was a party of two, and we were like, how are we going to make this happen, to now 6 of us with all of these systems in place. And I would like to note, because we just got this message yesterday, that the board had communications as a priority because they felt like it needed some support. And as of yesterday, we learned that because of these systems that we've set in place, they dropped that from the priority because they feel like we have really good pathways with communications, and they've been really impressed with what they see. And so now they're shifting over to communications with families and school sites, which we're going to go ahead, we're going to take care of that with the purchase of Parent Square. So we're really, really excited to you know, just push forward and continue these systems that have been proven to work.
Awesome. Next question. Who did you vet your strategic communications plan with?
That was vetted through cabinet, our board of education, our team wrote it. And then we looked at our LCAP goals. We looked at our board priorities. We looked at our district goals, and we pretty much kind of combined a lot of that. And so everybody had some input, but mostly I can say it was the communications team, our cabinet, and our board of education.
Awesome.
I had a question for you guys. You talked about giving the results to the board, giving them updates, but you also mentioned giving those analytics to the school sites who shared their stories. So in what ways do you share the analytics with folks who are not at board meetings?
So I can just give one example of a communications plan where that worked. So we recently, last year, we did an Attendance Matters campaign where we were really tasked with just trying to put as much content out there about data and reasons why it's important to be at school that are different from the generated materials that sometimes come to our people services departments from organizations. So we wanted something branded to look like a solid campaign that was ours. So we created a whole campaign on it, including data points like solid big numbers talking about 79%, and then a data point, as well as student content that are like reminding people when to come back to school. So our student board members were utilized for that. And what we saw from the analytics is that no one likes the number data graphics. And the other thing too is that it was also generic graphics that we had with stock photos of students. They were able to tell that that's stock photography, right? That those aren't actual photos. The things that did the best were photos of staff getting recognized for increasing attendance, and the content with the student board members. And so what we did is, in our next year, because this is going to be a continuous thing that we do every year, is we showed them those numbers. And when we were talking through the next year's plan, I was saying, this is where we need to go. So it doesn't mean that we're going to decrease the content we're doing. It means that we're going to change it. So we're going to emphasize what works. And so instead of just having student board members, we're going to incorporate every student we can from school sites and do things that are a little bit more lighthearted. That's still, because the main message of those is to kind of give a resource kit at the end of each post to say, are you having trouble with attendance? Please click here to find some resources. And so as long as we're doing that, our content can be a little bit more lighthearted, and that's what works. So we moved in that direction. So that's an example. It's not a school site example, but it is a department level example of how we use data to inform how we need to move forward.
In addition to with the school sites, when they see it on social media, they share it. So they're keeping track of the likes and the shares on social media. And also when we work on a news release, we always share it with the school site, because we always add a quote. So they know that it's that the information is coming out, and then they can use that too, because all of our stuff is translated. We will not release anything without Spanish translation. So we pretty much give it to them in a silver platter so that they can also spread the word with their platforms, with their families, and reach a higher audience. So yes, I think that we can still make that a little bit stronger when it comes to sharing with the school sites all of the analytics. We do share it with cabinet, but just because there's just different moving pieces, some stuff just goes on social media, some goes on our news hub, it's pitched to the media, it goes on social media, and so it just depends. But normally we try to stay consistent, and anybody who's involved who we're writing about will always know when that's going to be released, and we'll always have a copy both in English and Spanish so that they can also share out.
I was also curious about, you shared your MailChimp media info that goes out. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about what you send out after the fact, after events, and kind of what your success rate has been in having those stories picked up, and by which kind of news organizations.
So right now it's local media. Most of them we're pretty much a one paper town. For a big is Press Enterprise. We have like smaller ones, but we do have like connections with higher, not higher ed, what is that? I'm drawing a blank right now, but EdSource. Yeah, and so also like our TV stations, any reporter that we've worked with, or any both on the TV side or on the print side, we add them to MailChimp. And so we send bi-weekly digest pretty much with a photo, very like snippet of just a short caption of what happened and a read more. And that goes to our news hub. We are feeding them to our news hub for a reason. We want them to know that that's where they need to go. And most of the reporters who are local, they already go there. And it's really cool to see. But so that's kind of the way that we do pitch those stories. It's 50-50. They're viewing it, but they're not always, if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. I always tell the team that. And so unfortunately, we haven't had the success that I would like to see as far as picking up more of the feel good stories versus, little things that happen here and there that they want to know about. So we're still working on that. We're still feeding them some really good information, sending them some pitches about, different projects and initiatives. But, I would say they pick up maybe about between 20 and 30%, they'll go ahead and publish it on their news outlets, which is not a bad thing, but we want to see that number increase for sure.
One quick follow-up to that. Do you ever take video from your events and include it in those items?
Most of the time we do take video, but a lot of the times it's photos. We did do a year-end last day of school, and that was a video, which that did really well. But traditionally, I think photos do a lot better. It's based on our analytics. Our photos do a lot better. So we have a great media production team that goes out and takes photos. And so we'll put, a carousel of photos kind of to tell the story as well. And so that's what we use, and it's been working.
Fantastic.
Great. Any other questions? Give people just a minute. And looking at all you have done, what should a 1 or 2 person team focus on first? Great question.
A strategic plan. You cannot do anything without a plan. RPIE, I have my APR. I've been in this business. A plan. You have to know where you're going, what direction. 3-year plan. I know things change. I know things are going to come out of the woodworks, but if you have a strategic plan that is set and is vetted by your cabinet members and your board members, then that's the direction that you're going to be moving towards. And it's going to keep you sane, and it's going to keep you accountable. That is, I think, what my recommendation number one would be. Nick, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, I would agree. The strategic plan is our Bible for everything. It's really informed all of our processes, and it's really good for when new members come on too, to have something that we can point them to help them see exactly what the expectations are for us and just front load them. The only other thing I would say is if you're a small office, I would recommend utilizing Asana, and just even if it's just for you and the superintendent's admin, just to stay organized and setting that together, because the app is, accessible on via mobile and on, I'm sure on Android too, but definitely on iPhone. A superintendent that is thinking of things late at night could, in theory, be typing things into Asana. And of course, you may want to turn off notifications so you're not seeing things super late, right? But it's being stored somewhere, right? And in a place that is a little bit easier to manage than an email. So for me, like, one of the biggest things I absorbed is really getting task management out of email as much as possible, so you can communicate where you need to with that, but you're not searching for things, because things happen to email, right? I mean, technically things happen to everything, right? But if you have Asana keeping track of everything, it's a good way. I think our team, what we pay for, I think it's up to 10 seats, but you could get something that's maybe up to 5. And then you have a spot for your superintendent if they ever do want to go in there and look at the analytics, right? It's just like paving the way for something, and then kind of showing people why it's beneficial for them. And once people can start to get organized with that and start to feel better in general, I think that it's a pretty easy sell. But I would suggest utilizing that even if it's in a small capacity.
Thank you for that. The slide deck we will share. I also got a message asking if you would share your strategic plan, and if we could share that out when we share your slide deck. Would that be possible? It's linked in there.
So actually, yes, we didn't get to that slide,
Perfect.
but the last slide has all of the resources. I believe every form that we use, so you can see the questions that are there. An example of our communications resource site, which is this really great Google site that houses all of the content that we share out with people, the strategic plan, our at a glance booklet, and just all the good stuff. And of course, if something's not on here, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll definitely be able to send you examples of things.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And Trinette noted there's also lots of plans in the CalSPRA member library as well. Another question, curious if you have any advice on your overall social media strategy, what you post, how often, etc., especially when it's a 1 or 2 person department.
I would say try to start with, if it's one story a week. If you can manage doing one student or staff story a week, or even if it's like student highlight and staff highlight, where you're talking about the people that are actually in the district. Because if those people are highlighted, they're going to share that with people, and more people are going to start to pay attention. And that's an easy way to get stories. And then also, just once you get that going, like we said, be very clear about how people can submit things to you, so that you can start generating things, so you're not necessarily in that discovery phase all the time, but you can have things coming to you. Because I think that's the most challenging part at first, when that culture hasn't been created for people to submit things, is you feel a bit like an investigative reporter, like you're trying to just find all these good stories, right? But then it's hard because people aren't used to, and then some people are shy too, right? So there may be really engaged people that you can start with first for those highlights. But in general, as much as you can highlight staff and students, it's a good game plan. And I would try for 1 story a week. We try to do about 3 now, and that seems to be working well, but that's just photos. And even if you're just going on the site and just taking, but the best, if you can secure higher quality photos as much as possible, that seems to help.
Nick, do you also want to elaborate on the cultural calendar? We do follow NSPRA's cultural calendar, where we pretty much have all of the holidays that have been pretty much endorsed by NSPRA, and then we share it with cabinet, and then we kind of pick what works for us. And then there's a template on there, and there's captions, captions for social media. Sometimes we put it on the website banners. And so, and they're translated. And so that's also gives you some content to post. I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, I can't believe I forgot about my the cultural calendar. Yes, that's a main bulk of what we do. And it's every year, it's just a matter of updating it and looking at what's, you know, through NSPRO, what's being posted on there. So that's a really great way to see what works for your district, and then have content that's already, because you can theoretically do that like way ahead of time. And that's content that you have that's already been approved and generated that can be scheduled and posted in between the stories, right? So I think it's good to have both, because I'm always very Instagram focused. So I'm thinking of Instagram and the way things look. And if you can mix those really great photos of what's actually happening at our school site with the monthly celebration post, it's a really good mix of things. But yes, that's a great way that's actually probably something that you could start with, because that's something easy to generate in the beginning and have automatic content that could be scheduled and going for you without thinking about it once it's been done.
Great, thank you so much. Any last minute questions? If not, I want to say thank you so much to Diana and Nick for sharing this with us. And we will be sharing out the recording and the slideshow. So if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to them. I'm going to turn it over to Trinette to talk about what we have coming up at CalSPRA.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I don't know about you, but I am such a systems geek, and there were so many good ideas shared today that I know will help out, especially small offices. Sometimes we see stuff like this and we think only large organizations can have these kinds of systems, but it's even more important when you have fewer people. A really good system can actually make up for a lack of staff. Trust me, I'm a staff of one at CalSPRA. We've got systems. So I wanted to preview our next webinar. The one that we saw today is actually part of a series called the Conference Callback. And so this session was one of the highest rated at our last conference, and we'll be bringing back many of those. Next week on Monday, we have something a little bit different. If you've been on the list of the last couple weeks, you've seen lots of discussion around the First Amendment auditors that are kind of touring the state and trying to make school administrators everywhere feel as uncomfortable as possible, really pushing the limits, and then videoing it to try to get some viral sensation going. So not so much fun at school campuses right now, but we have F3 Law is one of our CalSPRA partners. They're going to be sending their presenter, Seth Erickson, who is a partner with their law firm, and he's going to be talking about legally. And also what I love about F3 is they don't just talk about the legalese, they talk about public perception. So how do you handle this from a legal perspective? How do you handle this once these folks come to your campus from a PR perspective? And I'll put that in the chat, the link to get to that. And then also, you heard it here first, we'll be launching information about the conference coming up. And we'll be asking folks to put in proposals to present. The CalSPRA conference will be held February 28th through March 2nd in Sacramento this year. And we'll be looking for lots of great content, just like we had last year. On the end of the month, we'll have an office hour devoted to how to submit a successful conference proposal, because we really want to make sure we get as many different voices and perspectives as possible at the upcoming conference. So here is the office hour link. Hope to see you all at both of those. Thanks again for coming. Jessica, any final words?
No, thank you so much. And I hope you all have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
You.